Recording in progress.
Okay, I'd like to call this Wednesday, March 15th, Recreation, Music, and Parks Commission meeting to order. This is our first meeting back in the chambers. I think most people haven't been in the chambers. So exciting to be here and be in person with everyone. We will start with roll call.
Here.
Stacey Earl.
Here.
Kate Greenspan.
Here.
Megan Kelly.
Here.
Hannah Rizzo-Simmons.
Here.
Karen Knapp.
Here.
Mary Kate DeLuco.
Okay, perfect. We'll move on to Pledge of Allegiance. Great, thank you. We're going to move on to general public comment. Any comments that don't pertain to an item on the agenda? Does anyone have any general public comments?
Chair, we received 2 public comments which were posted to the agenda prior to the meeting. There are no other general public comments.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, we will move on to the approval of minutes from the February 15th meeting. Does anyone want a motion to approve the minutes? Any changes?
I didn't see the minutes online. Were they posted online? They were?
Should have been. We can check here real quick.
Did the rest of the commission read the minutes?
I only
They
say,
were in Drew's link for his email.
pardon?
They were in the link that Drew sent.
I just was on the, I brought up the things from last meeting. I needed the draft of the IPM, and I didn't see it on there because I was just going to click on it and read it there.
It says draft minutes.
Is that it? Okay.
Right.
If the rest of the commission, I wasn't at that meeting, so I can't, I have to abstain. But if the rest of the commission didn't have time to read the minutes or didn't read them, we can always postpone this for the next meeting.
I read them.
Did the rest of the commission read them? No?
I
Okay.
couldn't find
So let's move it to the next meeting. We'll remember that in April. Okay, we're going to move
It's on the
on.
link.
We're going through here. We're going to move on to Petaluma Skate Park Design and Site Analysis Project. Drew, are you starting us off here?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm going to allow a minute or so we can queue up our presentation slides and introduce some staff. I want us to start with just a high-level review of where we are. How did we get here? And in 2019, 2020, shortly after the passing of the dedicated parks sales tax, Measure M, the city undertook a pretty significant community outreach, which involved public meetings, surveys, workshops to help inform not just Measure M, but prioritize investment across our parks. So pandemic 2020 also gave us a lot of indication on the patterns and shifting uses of our spaces, how we, what our vision is for the future of them, but most importantly, we saw a lot of increased activity across the spectrum of outdoor activity, but there were a few in particular. Skating was one of them where we saw just an increased usage across the board, and it really highlighted, again, the fact that we have a lot of room for growth here in Petaluma to accommodate the need for the skating community. So in 2021-22, City Council approved funding to earmark towards evaluating new opportunities to expand skate parks in Petaluma and evaluate the existing conditions of the current park. That kind of culminated to the 2022-23 fiscal year budget, where a portion of the American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, as well as a pretty significant portion of Measure M revenues that year combined as for the first time appropriation towards a project, which was a skate park design and site analysis project. So that really kind of takes us to December, where we were excited to bring to council and get the approval of a design contract, Grindline Inc., which the city now brought on and has been partnering with to take this from a project to a reality. And while there's been a lot of outreach, which Bjorn will talk about tonight, we'll have some folks here that I recognize has been a part of that process, but this is a really big moment for us. This is the first public meeting per se where a committee commission board has had the chance to kind of review process up to this point, and I think more importantly, get some input on our recommendations on how we see this going forward. So with that, I'll introduce Bjorn Grippenberg, who wears many hats, but one tonight is as our project manager with the Public Works and Utilities division, spearheading this. So Bjorn, take it away.
All right, great. Thank you, Drew. I haven't spoken into a mic here yet, so sound good? All right. Good evening, commission members and members of the public. You can go ahead and advance to the next slide, please, Delana. So tonight, we are not really sharing any new information on this project, or at least new to those who have been following along through our first two community workshops that we've held in January and February. But we'll bring you all up to speed on some additional project background, recap our first round of engagement, and then talk you through the site analyses that we just did with Grindline at our February workshop, talk through some potential phased build-out approach, and then next steps. Next slide, please. So as Drew acknowledged, the Petaluma Skate Park was built in 1997. It's among the oldest in California, and something we all know, it lacks a lot of standard park amenities and features that would encourage participation from broader range of ages, ability levels, and user groups. Some of the amenities it's lacking include lighting, restrooms, water fountain, shade, seating. This, and Drew mentioned, there's been a lot of energy around this project through various discussions, including Measure M. It's part of the City Council goals and priorities. And we were excited to go through a competitive RFP process through which we received two proposals, actually interviewed both firms and chose Grindline Skate Parks. Council then authorized that contract in December, and we've moved very quickly. Grindline came down later in December. We did a number of site visits with them, had a kickoff meeting, and then we've actually been able to hold one community workshop per month since then. And so we've got a lot of great momentum on this project. Next slide, please. So our project goal here is to work with the community to chart the future of skating and other related activities such as BMX, rollerblading, and freestyle scootering in Petaluma. And I've been assured by people in the skating community that when you say skating, it's an all-encompassing word. It's not just referring to skateboards, it's also referring to other skate park users. But really what we're trying to get at here, the heart of this project is how do we target future investments in skating infrastructure in Petaluma? Next slide, please. So our first round of engagement, which included an online survey that Grindline put together and distributed, as well as that first community workshop over at the community center, really focused on the question of whether we want to target our investments upgrading the existing skate park, or do we want to potentially leave it as is and pursue a new skate park or multiple skate parks elsewhere. And what we heard at that workshop and in the survey from an overwhelming majority of people is that they, while they acknowledge that the skate park is something, there's a lot of sentimental value with the skate park, people would much rather target their investments building a brand new skate park. And rather than building multiple smaller skate parks, they would like to target investments in a single larger skate park. We did acknowledge at that meeting that funding is somewhat limited. We have a project budget currently of about $460,000, which is definitely not enough to design and build that large skate park. And so something that came from the community and came from Grindline as a recommendation was to pursue a phased approach that would essentially allow people to skate each phase as it's completed, and then we'd move on to the next phase as more additional funding would become available. Next slide, please. So I'll just quickly share the online survey results and then the workshop results around those central questions. There were a lot of other questions Grindline asked about, but those were much more detailed about specific skating features. So just for your benefit, as I mentioned with the online survey, we had about 77% of people who expressed preference for keeping the existing skate park and focusing investments in a new skate park. Next slide, please. And then on the left there, you'll see this was a paper survey that was available to attendees of the first workshop. We tallied up the results, very similar outcome, 78% saying keep the skate park and construct a new one. And then on the right there, slightly more detailed question asking for preferences between the question of, do we want a single larger skate park or multiple smaller skate parks? 69% voting for the large skate park option. And then interestingly, 20% saying make some improvements to the existing skate park, but invest a majority of funds into the new park design. So overall there, you actually have about 89% saying, really focus your efforts on that single new skate park. Next slide, please. So moving into our second workshop then, which we held just last month, again at the community center, our focus moved to the site analysis exercise in which Grindline looked at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, a SWOT analysis, really focusing on things like accessibility, location relative to other activity generators like schools or shopping destinations, accessibility by different modes of transportation, transit, whether the parks were located in places that were accessible by transit, by walking, by biking, looking at sight lines into the park for safety reasons, and also looking at existing amenities, lighting, restrooms, other things on site that would potentially lower the cost of construction. And then really importantly, looking at the available footprint for a skate park. So we did initially identified 8 Drew city parks or city-owned properties that could potentially accommodate a new skate park. Is that correct?
Correct. Eight sites were toured.
Yep. And so we whittled it down to 4 parks from that list, sort of working with Grindline and also working with the feedback we received in that first round. And the 4 parks we whittled it down to were Leghorns Park, Lucchese Park, Kenilworth Park, and Wiseman Park. So we'll just go through each of those right now. Next slide, please. So the first one up is Kenilworth Park. And just to kind of orient, I know this is small for folks in the audience, but to orient you, so they've got, Grindline is showing strengths sort of shaded in a light green, weaknesses in a yellow, opportunities in blue, and threats in red. And I'll just provide a high-level summary for each of these. So for Kenilworth Park, the main strengths and opportunities identified were the fact that this is a very central park, obviously accessible from all areas of town, very accessible by transit, plenty of parking availability, and then also its proximity to the library, the teen center, the existing skate park, shopping. So it has a lot working in its favor from a location standpoint. Some of the limiting factors or potential weaknesses, this is currently a dawn to dusk park, which means you do not currently have any lighting in this park for nighttime activities. There are no existing publicly accessible restrooms. And then there's also the potential uncertainty around this project, or around this as a potential site, due to the much larger park redesign conversation happening. There's also would be a need for fencing likely due to the proximity to multiple roadways. And Grind Line, the reason I mentioned fencing, it seems like a very random thing to think about, but Grind Line's guidance is really to try to avoid, they don't like having fenced in skate parks where possible. And I'm just looking through my notes to see if there's anything else I didn't mention. So the flip side of that, mentioning the larger Kenilworth redesign effort, that was also seen as a potential opportunity, right? Because then this could become folded into a larger conversation around that park, and there's some potential cost savings there since there would already be major construction activity happening. And then key to note that the available footprint is actually much larger, but what we included was 22,000 square feet here on the understanding that roughly 1/3 of this park would be available for this sort of active recreation. Anything, Drew, that you want to add to that there?
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. The visual kind of shows the footprint of the park, which is more of about 66,000 square feet. So we're trying to highlight about 1/3 would represent 22,000, but as it's portrayed, that's not, the 22,000 feet doesn't represent that entire area. So think of it about 1/3. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we can go to the next slide, which is Leghorns Park. So Leghorns was a very appealing location due to its proximity to shopping, lots of schools in the area, transit access. It's a busy park. You have some really good existing amenities. There's a restroom located right near the proposed location. There is lighting in the park, so this is not a dawn to dusk park. There's lighting for the tennis courts. And then as far as weaknesses go, the fatal flaw for this park as far as the skating community was concerned was the limited footprint. So you can see this actually has the smallest available area of the 4 parks we looked at, 14,000 square feet, which is comparable. Our existing skate park is about 14,000 square feet. And that really, the target that I think the skating community has identified, that Grind Line has recommended, is more in the neighborhood of 20,000 to 30,000 square feet, especially through a phased approach where you need a little bit more room to kind of grow the park over time. And then another downside identified to this location was the fact that it is not very central. It's located on the outer edge of town. All right, next slide, please. Lucchese Park is our second most central location, located near shopping, the Boys and Girls Club, Loma Vista Immersion Academy, in a busy park with nighttime activity at both the tennis courts and on the soccer field. So good amenities from that perspective. There is an existing restroom very close to the proposed location, and also accessible by transit, accessible by the Lynch Creek Trail. And from Grind Line's perspective, no fencing would be needed at this location. Weaknesses was really limit the potential parking challenges, especially during events, busy events at the community center, at the Little League fields, and also the presence of trees throughout this area. And Grind Line did acknowledge that that's something that they're very used to working around, and even mention, it does become a maintenance concern, and even a potential hazard, right, with trees dropping leaves and debris on a surface that you need to have clean and smooth for safety reasons. But Matt at Grind Line has promised us that the skating communities are very good stewards and usually pretty good at keeping the skate parks clean, from his experience. And so Matt has really doesn't see that as a huge, Matt from Grind Line does not see that as a big challenge. Next slide, please. So the last park we looked at was Wiseman, out by the airport. Biggest strength and opportunities, it's really kind of a blank slate for this piece of land. It's flat, it's open. would not really present any significant design challenges. Also has an existing restroom on site, that small building that you see towards the top of the orange polygon there. The biggest weaknesses identified by Grindline and echoed by the skating community, the fact that this is located on the outer edge of town, not very accessible by transit, not really located. It's in the middle of a residential neighborhood, so it's not really located near any major activity generators like schools or shopping. And this is also currently a dawn to dusk park, so new lighting would potentially present a challenge. All right, next slide, please. So this is just a summary of kind of the high level of each park, the available footprint, whether or not we have an existing restroom and lighting, and whether or not Grindline fencing would be needed. And then just some notes really providing commentary on the nature of each of these locations. I'll just pause here so that you can digest this information. All right. I think we can move to the next slide. So we went through this exercise at like I said, at our last workshop. People in attendance had an opportunity to ask questions about each of these sites. And after hearing about each of the sites, asking questions, we asked folks through live polling using their phones to rank these in order of preference. So you can see Lucchese and Kenilworth came out on top. Those numbers to the right of each of these are the average ranking from over 50 votes that were received at the workshop. And then after we received these results in real time, we asked people to pick their preference between the top two locations. So a forced ranking. And if you can go to the next slide, please. And that's where Lucchese came out on top with 34 votes compared to Kenilworth's 14 and 4 folks with no preference. All right, next slide, please. So now we'll transition into just some phased build outs really quickly. I'm not going to spend too much time on each of these. Really, I think the heart of the feedback we're looking for from the commission and public tonight is around the site analyses and site selection process. But just to give you a sense of kind of where Grindline is looking next as far as how we would potentially design and deliver this project, just to show some examples of other projects they've worked on. Next slide, please. So for each of these, you'll see an image of the final build out along with some sort of images showing the phasing over time, as well as the square footage that they added with each phase. And what you'll see with each of these, Delana, I'm happy you can just start kind of scrolling through these. I don't know that we need to spend too much time on it. Is just that we can potentially deliver a park that is tailored to the available funding that we will have over the next, that we have through our initial funding, and showing kind of the varying sizes of these phases and number of phases, providing a little bit more flexibility. And Drew, I don't know if you have anything you want to add just with regard to the phasing.
Yeah, I think it's important. A lot of the discussion, that will come after that is right. How do we sequence the phasing? And the reality is we got a lot of feedback on that design, and that's really what's exciting about working with Grindline is they're going to take a lot of that information and really work hard to make the most sense about what can we skate in each phase, what makes the most sense. But that just we're not that process yet. Thank you.
Okay, we can go to the next slide. So as far as next steps are concerned, as we mentioned, a majority of this approved budget will be needed for project development, given what we are looking at. That includes engagement planning. It includes what we're doing right now. And then also the more detailed design work that will get us closer to shovel-ready status for that first phase. We'll continue to develop that phasing plan and explore public-private partnerships and funding opportunities. We also know that it's important not to forget the existing skate park. It does need some upgrades, and so we will explore concurrent upgrades to the skate park to make it more user-friendly, more accessible, but without diverting funds from this $463,000 approved budget that we have to devote towards a new designing and building a new skate park. And following your feedback tonight, we will be taking this to council with a very similar presentation for their feedback as well. Do have another slide here showing the so just our overall process and timeline. So just kind of recapping what we've done so far. Awarded the contract in December, held our first workshop in January, really answered that first key question of where we want to take this project. Held that second workshop in February, focused on the site analysis. We're here tonight. So it's great. We've had one meeting per month on this. We're keeping really good momentum. And then we will, after tonight, go to council as soon as we can get on an agenda. And then once we have some confidence in that a site has been selected, we can cut grind line loose on developing conceptual designs for public review and feedback, and those would take us through the summer. We have 2 community workshops planned to really roll our sleeves up and dive into the proposed design. But until we have that site selected, we kind of have to hold grind line back until we have confidence that we have a site selected. And lastly, just encourage everyone to go to the project webpage, cityofpetaluma.org/skatepetaluma. We're keeping it up to date after every round of outreach, and we also are sending updates out to anyone interested in keeping up to date with the project. And with that, I'm happy to turn it back to the commission.
Okay, just clarifying questions. Any clarifying questions about all this? Karen?
I'm a little behind because I'm new to this and I don't personally skate. The question I have, the current skate park behind the swim center, is it locked up at night?
No, it's not being locked up at night.
Okay, so does it have lights? No. Okay. So people could go in and do it. I never thought about fencing. So that was a question. And then I was wondering why Wiseman wouldn't need fencing.
With Wiseman, I believe it was just that there was enough room to provide a natural buffer between the potential skate park location and the roadway. So really what they're looking at is with skate parks, you have the potential for skateboards to fly out into a street, right? And so in an ideal location, you would have enough of a sort of natural landscaped buffer around the skate park so that you don't have that happen.
So would you create a berm so it doesn't?
I think it could be achieved multiple ways. It could be a berm, or if there's enough room, it could also just be sort of a natural landscape surface.
Because it is a residential area.
Right.
So I was just curious about those.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many, I want to say police calls get called to the current one. Does the Petaluma Police Department have, because I know we have a lot of, I teach on the fairgrounds, and so we have a lot of our shelterless friends hanging out in front of the fairgrounds. And if the skate park wasn't locked, they could actually, I didn't know if it was a problem, if the shelterless go into that area at night. They pitch their tents up around the Kenilworth building. So I just never looked down that way to see if it was a problem.
I can actually answer that. I'm at the swim
okay.
center 5 days a week. I've never seen, there's definitely never been any tents and
Okay.
anybody sleeping there. I think maybe in the last 3 years, we've had maybe 3 incidences.
Oh, that's good to
Yeah,
hear.
it's not big.
That's
big
good to
issue,
hear,
unless
because
anyone
around-
else has any information.
Around
that-
Kenilworth, we have the SAFE team comes a lot between the library and the Kenilworth buildings and that park. So it's good to hear. So those are my only comments and questions.
Other clarifying questions? Hannah?
I guess when fencing's mentioned, can that include natural fencing that the city would install? Or are we just talking like chain link fence? Like if we were to put like a natural hedge barrier at Kenilworth, which they're wanting for the playground anyways, are we including that in the conversation? Or are we just talking like chain link fence?
We really haven't talked about fencing types with Grindline, but that's definitely something that we would look at with them and as we move into the design. Yeah.
Marianne?
I have a couple questions. One, would putting the skate park at Kenilworth then preclude the other community conversation about having a new play area and other things there? Would one take the place of the other, or would they still both be in the mix?
Drew, I'll give you that one to you.
Yeah, I'll take the first stab at it. So, that's why I think the SWOT analysis was so interesting on this, because in one aspect, you had, some advantages of the constructionability of it. It's an exciting proposal to have mobilized a lot of heavy equipment on a site and keep the costs of a skate park build down. However, that process, we're at the portion of just being at the point of selecting a design firm for a larger project. So the risks are you now combine those two elements and they have to go together in that design selection as well as funding, et cetera. So that's a risk as far as we're concerned as well, because you're kind of hitched to that process versus going on an independent timeline. So that's the best way I could answer that question, is they would have to be combined and they would follow each other through the outreach, through the design selection, review, CEQA, all of it.
Okay. And the other question I had was about the trees at Lucchese. Would we be looking at taking out trees to put in a skate park there, or would the trees be protected?
That's a great question. I'm going to put Cindy on the spot here. It's interesting to look at an aerial. There's obviously some trees that will come into play, but there was a tree planting out there recently, and you want to speak specific to that.
Sure, thank you, Drew. So the trees that were planted with Relief, I want to say it was a few weeks ago now, those are all outside of the area that's being scoped for the skate park. So the new trees are out of what I would call the danger zone. There are some mature trees within that area, some that are probably going to have to be removed anyways, just because they're decaying. So as far as from the footprint that's there are a few that we'd have to look at, but I don't think that we'd have to remove a great number of trees to place the skate park there. I also think we could probably work with the team with the design to better understand if there is, some trees that have been there and are older growth, to save those trees, right, to not be a sacrifice to the design.
And I'll just add real quick, another advantage of that mature shade canopy was something that was exciting to the design firm too, to be able to work within that to allow those berms and shade to be assets. So it's a thin line there.
Stacy?
Yes. So I guess one clarifying question would be, is Relief on hold for planting any more trees in this area where it's being considered for the skate park?
So the plans were to face tree planting at Lucchese, and we haven't looked at that area yet, but there's a lot of park. So when we've looked at Lucchese, we looked more to the area closer to Lynch Creek Trail in that park site to do phase 2 planting. So at this time, they're not on hold. We just hadn't explored that area yet.
Okay. With Kenilworth, I know, and off the top of my head, I can't remember. I know that there's a lot of people that want the volleyball court to come back, and that would be a concern. Was that taken into consideration, the size that would be needed with, when you did the 22,000, was that kind of keeping in line, like this area would be volleyball, and this is the play structure, and this is the picnic? Did that kind of take that into consideration?
Yeah, that's a great question. We did the initial round community workshop surveys to really inform, how we partner with the right design team for Kenilworth. Our direction was essentially 3 components of that park. We had active recreation uses, we had a play area, and we had a kind of a group gathering. It's a picnic facility there now. So those are kind of the 3 themes that we had for the design. So I think the next step, whether it be volleyball or any other amenity, I think that's the time when then we would have to engage our community again to say, hey, here are all the options. Here's the site constraints. We can't have it all, but prioritize it. Is it volleyball? Is it this? And roughly within those 3 themes, how do you create a balance between the 3? So no, we didn't specifically look at volleyball in the existing footprint.
Okay. And this might not be discussed. Was it discussed what the upgrades would be for the old skate park? I understand the funding isn't intertwined, but what are those looking like?
So we did, or Grindline in their online survey did ask the community about the importance of different types of amenities, and the top preference was for lighting. Second was water fountain, and then canopy, and then to a lesser extent seating. So, and I don't think their list actually included restrooms, but we've identified that as another potential need, as well as just the accessibility of the entrance. It's got some pretty intense bollards that make it hard for people with bikes to get in, or wheelchair users. And then also, and the fencing, I think, has been identified as another sort of eyesore. If that's fair to say. True. Anything else that I'm missing from that list?
Yeah, I think eyesore or opportunity. I think when we're walking it, say, well, we could, push this back here. Wouldn't this be nice? But yeah, I think we really have to lean on the skating community to kind of help us prioritize that and take the feedback we've received up to this point, which is to really safeguard this project, but then perhaps create another track that we need to focus on.
All right. That was all of my questions. Thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, Cindy, Gophers. How do skate parks affect Gophers, and what would it mean long term?
As far as Gophers concrete, if I'm going to be honest with you, so the effect on the skate park as far as surface wouldn't be as big as an impact. But when you look at whether it's Kenilworth or Lucchese, they have a lot of gopher issues. So I think when you go and you do grading, you're going to take down all of their tunnels, right, where they live. But if you don't grade the whole area, then they're still going to be on the perimeter. But it won't necessarily affect the play surface of a skate park.
So if they're on the perimeter, they won't puncture the cement. They won't.
I've never seen it. And the one park that I don't have gopher issues in, well, actually, there's 2, but one is a skate park. I haven't had any issues there.
Okay.
So I don't think it'd be an issue, if I'm being honest. But we'd still want to look at it because Lucchese has quite an intense gopher issue, and it's not been at the top of my list to kind of address because it's not in the playing fields, right? So I'm addressing the parks that have active playing fields first, but we would want to still take a look at it.
Okay.
But I mean, when you're thinking of depth, right? So the depth of concrete that you're going to be putting in is not 3 inches thick, but even at that, I don't think you get most gophers. I mean, I could be wrong. I will do my research. I just haven't seen it be an issue, and maybe Commissioner Bertuccelli had some experience with skate parks and gophers.
The gophers themselves won't affect the surface, but over time.
Can you put the mic on? Thank you. Sorry.
Sorry about that. The gophers themselves won't be able to puncture the concrete, but over time, if they're really working an area underneath, they could change the soil competition or create voids underneath, which could create problems with settling and things like that over time.
Over time. So that's something that would be looked into with this process.
Yeah, and definitely, we're already starting the gopher abatement process, so it would just fall in line with our program.
Okay, thank you.
If I can also add, with our problems or challenges related to Adobe Clay in Petaluma, we've already identified that we would need to do some pretty thorough geotechnical work as part of the design for this project.
Okay. Karen, did you have a question?
I was just going to mention the Adobe because concrete and Adobe have a lot of problems. You can talk to all the neighbors in that area, in my own driveway too. My driveway is cracked over time. So you don't want that to happen. So I don't know how you would, do you bring in fill? Do you dig down? Because the Adobe goes pretty deep.
Fortunately, the city's gaining a lot of experience and expertise in this area. And so there are several different ways to approach it, but those are all, we've definitely shared that information with Grindline, and they're taking that into consideration as they move forward with the design.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. My last question is about the phasing. I'm sure this is a concern by everyone of if, you complete phase 1 and, oh no, there's no money for phase 2, or, oh, phase 2 is going to happen in 15 years. And I know you can't be, specific about when it's going to happen and where that funding is going to come from, but are we talking about a 3-year process, a 5-year process, a 10, what are you thinking there?
I'll start and then pass it off to Drew. So Grindline's initial recommendation is, phase 1, work with the available funding, right, to design and construct with whatever is left within that $463,000 budget. And then after that, they recommend phase 2 in an ideally roughly 5,000 square feet. Try to get the project up close to 10,000 feet. You have a pretty good footprint at that point. And then phase 3, the remainder of the park, likely closer to 10,000 square feet for the third phase. But all this will be worked out through the design and with the consideration given to the funding constraints.
Is that Measure M funding? So it's within our 10-year period? What is that?
Yeah, so the funding to date was, one-time funds through Measure M and through the American Rescue Plan Act. So I think this has the potential, any funding source should be on the table. It's going to be included as part of the annual process of budget review that goes to council. So it shouldn't be just limited to Measure M. I think we as a city need to look across our capital projects and say, where does the skate park fall in? And we'll be looking at every opportunity. I think those that are more successful in obtaining grants are those that are shovel ready. And so that was another motivation to getting us to construct phase 1 is you have construction documents that are shovel ready so that you'd be more, have an advantage going in for getting grants. But until that design, until those kind of phases come out, we don't have a timeline. Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm struggling with that because I guess we can't think into the future of how we get the council to, right, approve in 3 years or 4 years. Can you tell us about another phased-in project that's happened in Petaluma and what the timeline looked like?
Well, I think the Petaluma Community Sports Field is a good and bad example. One that has taken decades. So that's one that's kind of where a little PTSD, but for a lot of different reasons too. Those are giant phases. There was recession and a pandemic. There were other needs the city had. So I think the important part is to prioritize this within capital improvement projects and parks, and to prioritize this within capital improvement projects citywide. But other phased projects, it seems to be a very Petaluma approach. I think more often than not. But Miracle League was phased in that we've done the playground and site build kind of separately. It was a pretty unique project that was 100% capital, or privately funded capital for the ball field, and then grants and contributions for the playground. So that one, a lot of partnerships, but yeah, phased into.
We're faster than any other project.
And that's kind of where Bjorn made a good point about momentum, right? It's really hard getting that phase one adopted into construction, but momentum is a great thing for public projects.
Okay, thank you. Any other clarifying questions before we go on to public comment?
Just one thing. I know this is our first time in person. Does everyone need one of those yellow forms? Because we had a lot of folks come in late.
Yes.
So they
So
didn't
if
get
you
the
would like to
announcement.
speak, you need one of these yellow forms. I believe they're in the back, and you'll hand them to our clerk over here. And I do have them up here.
So I just want to make sure everyone can speak.
Thank you, Hannah. I appreciate that. Okay, am I introducing public comment? I do forget this part.
Sure, you can cue our clerk to open up public comment.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll cue the clerk.
We'll officially open up public comment, and then we'll read that statement during public comment.
During
Items,
public
yeah.
comment, the public is invited to make comments on items of public interest that are within the recreation, music, and parks subject matter jurisdiction and that are listed on the current agenda. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Depending on the number of persons wishing to address the commission, time will be allotted in equal shares, totaling no more than 20 minutes, subject to the commission's discretion.
So as of right now, we have 7 public comments. That would be 21 minutes. It looks like there's a couple more coming in. Maybe 1, 2, 3, 4. So 11. Is everyone okay with going with 3 minutes a person? Okay, great. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call up the speaker, and then I'm going to call up who's right behind them, and have them sit in the chair right behind the speaker spot there, just so that we can move the process faster. The clock is going to go up there as well. Thank you so much. And we will hear the public comments. So we're going to have Tyler Hagan speak, and then Tom Scott right behind him. Oh, okay. There you go. Sean Stork, right behind him. Okay, so Tyler Hagan.
All right, I'm losing my voice here, so I'll keep it quick. But my name's Tyler. I'm born and raised here. Started skating in Pelham when I was about 9. Can you hear me? Thank you. Yeah, I was here and skating when the current skate park was built. It was cool, but I think I can safely say all the skaters in Pelham are very stoked at the prospect of a new one. And also for all the adults who see here, there's probably like 20 kids who would also be very excited about it. So I just want to say that, and also there's my voice. Thank everybody for considering it.
Great, thank you. We'll have Sean Stork, and right behind that, Nick Cotton.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. My name is Sean Stortz. I'm a lifetime Sonoma County resident. I've been skateboarding for over 35 years. So needless to say, it's been a big part of my life. I have 2 children. They also skateboard. I'm here tonight to say thank you for being here, for getting Grindline involved. It's encouraging to see this process happening. And I just want to show my support for the Lucchese Park location. I think it's the best option that we have for multiple reasons. And that's all I have to say tonight. So thanks again. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you. Nick Cotton, followed by Ryan Buchanan.
Mine's pretty much the same. I'm 20 and I've been skating in Petaluma for like 6-7 years now, primarily at the Phoenix Theater, because that's like a really good spot we have in town with ramps and stuff. And I've gone to the park we have quite a bit, but comparing that to parks like Sebastopol and Novato, it just like is not up to par at all. So whenever I heard that this project was gonna get rolling, and like how it's been for the last few months, I was excited to participate and show up to like the meetings and stuff. So yeah, I'm excited, and I hope we get something going. That's all I got.
Awesome, thank you. Ryan Buchanan, followed by Zach Warner, or Watcher? Zach.
All right, so I've been skating for like 3 years now. I'm 16 years old, and I have like wanted a new park for so long. I used to actually scooter at our park now, and that was about like 7 years ago probably. And ever since like I started scootering, then I wanted a new park. Ever since I started skating, I wanted a new park. And I just want to say thank you for finally like starting to do this, and I'm very excited for what's gonna happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Zach Watcher, followed by Ariel Brown.
I'm Zach, obviously, but I've been skating for about a year now, and like from the community, like the skate park isn't known as like the best skate park. But I really appreciate you guys like going out of your way and, you know, trying to at least get a new skate park. It's really appreciated. So thank you.
Thank you. Ariel Brown, followed by Denise Tran. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ariel Brown. Thank you, Drew, Bjorn, for all your work you've been and the workshops you've been doing. I really appreciate it. And thank you for your attention. We've raised 2 kids here in town. They're in their 20s. We spent their whole life skating and traveling to communities around Petaluma because of this park not being up to par. So we're really excited that this is happening and moving forward. And more than that, for these kids, that the next generation has somewhere to be. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And we all support the Casey location. Thanks.
Thank you. Denise, followed by Tyler Litch.
Hi, I'm Denise Tranfalia. I've been living in Petaluma for about 28 years. I am a youth advocate, a skate advocate, and representing also Petaluma Skate Park Coalition. So a couple things I wanted to talk about the process. Thank you, Bjorn. Thank you, Drew. Thank you to the commission. It really, truly has been a community democratic process, and it's been really great to be part of. I appreciate that Grindline is ahead of the design. They're really good folk, and I think that you can trust their design and decision making and giving Petaluma the best design process of that. I wanted to share that the community is invested, and the skate community is invested and in. They're all in on this project. And so what we need is to have the commission in, and then of course, city council in. And I echo Megan, your concern about funding, right? So if we're having these phases, where's that funding? And I really do think it would behoove you as a commission to really recommend that there is phased funding as part of Measure M money. We know that we're going to have community members and our coalition and other public organizations help with fundraising, but I don't really think it has to be all on the public organizations. I really do think Petaluma needs to commit to funding this project. And so I wanted to thank you. You have quite a team. They really have done their due diligence, and thank you.
Thank you. Tyler Lynch, followed by Eric Felth.
Hello, I first want to thank Bjorn and Drew for all their work with community workshops and getting everyone together. The process has been really awesome, and I know everyone has been really thankful to be able to have feedback on this project in multiple different ways throughout so many years, not only just how long it took for the initial skate park to be built, but also to have something done. As being someone who's been a BMX bike rider for over 20 years and using the skate park since it opened as a skateboarder, there's just that park and kind of preserving it is something that's definitely kind of important. It's made its kind of a stamp on the BMX and skating community, and being able to kind of honor how much a part of those cultures are in this town, and having some huge people who are skateboarding and bike riding, and being able to honor that with a new park, especially since it's induction into the Olympics and other opportunities with that, and also the opportunity to bring people into town with having a nice new skate park. I mean, talking to any people that have participated in these sports are willing to, fly around the world to go to a skate park that's worth the time. So being able to have people like Grindline work on it and just the city to get involved is really great. So looking forward to seeing what happens, and thanks for your time.
Thank you. Eric Feith, followed by Timothy Lane.
Hi, thanks a lot. I'm a skateboarder for decades. I'm a dad, and I'm also a project engineer, actually. And I'd like to say thanks to Drew and Bjorn both for their thorough analysis. It's been quite impressive, all the feedback you solicited too. So that's been really nice. And I do really appreciate your thoughtful consideration. The council asked some really good questions. So I'm excited. I just want to echo a lot of the sentiment that's already been shared. And I think Lucchese is the best location, also central. I think you should go ahead with the phased in approach. Skateboarding, the way the parks are, you can always add to them. If there were repairs that needed to happen, those could actually be considered a feature. So the trees, like you said, if they come out, we can still skate around them. If they're there, we'll clean up because we're not trying to, skate on a surface that's not prepared. And I'm just excited. I want to also encourage you to get some lights, because the longer the time that's open, the more chance for people to use it. And, one thing is for the children, for the kids, to have somewhere to go, something to do. It's really super positive influence for them. So, I just wanted to give some feedback there on that, and appreciate your time and consideration. Thanks.
Thank you. Timothy Lane, followed by Joel Huckabee. Yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, Commission, and thank you, Drew and Bjorn. My name's Timothy. I live in Sebastopol. 20 years plus with the Sebastopol Skate Park Committee and ongoing community member. So I was just digging around the skate park today. There's gopher holes as I'm trying to kind of do some drainage work, while we've got the break in the rain. And I would like to just put my vote in for the Lucchese location. It just from my community work and the experience that I've had in that kind of regard, having multiple areas where families can come and kids can play soccer while maybe another family member, mom and dad, want to skate. That's just a really wonderful opportunity. Having facilities on location is big. Just knowing how much just a water fountain costs and how long it took for us to get a good water fountain where you can fill up your water bottle and there's a little dog dish down below and just things like that I get excited about. Just in regards to the phase issue, that's a really good, it's a logical question. How are the nuts and bolts going to kind of unfold? The skateboard, BMX, scooter, wheelchair, BMX communities, we're tight. We network, and I ran 3 of the fundraisers myself after people on the committee had gotten kind of burned out. And I had fun doing it. I got local bands. You get a lot of raffle together, and we had youth bands playing. It was just a really fun community activity that it brings people together, and that's something that the skate park in Sebastopol really, the observation was, this is the most used park that we have ever dedicated our time and money to. That was one of the really interesting observations of the city council. And I personally led the lights committee. It took us 7 years, but it was these guys here, when some of the youth came up and spoke at the podium, all of a sudden the park was, or rather the lights were approved, and it was absorbed into the cost of a new phase that we had next to the skate park, which was a playground and some barbecue pits and stuff. So it's really, I know that there can be some concerns about the skateboard community and BMX, et cetera, but really in all, people, I drive down to Fremont to ride a skate park down there because I love it. I've driven up to Oregon because that's where the Grindline parks were 20 years ago. So these are just kind of things I wanted to share with you, and really very grateful for the contribution you all do, to our community as a commission, and your time is valuable. So, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We have Joel, followed by Bobby Britton.
Hello, my name is Joel Huckabee, and I actually grew up in Santa Rosa, but only just very recently actually moved to Petaluma. I'm very grateful to be here. And I just wanted to express my gratitude to you all for coming together to discuss this very exciting new development in Petaluma, and also give us as the community an opportunity to speak and express our opinions and excitement and passion about this as well. And just kind of piggybacking off of what Tim said, I personally like skating at Sebastopol a lot, and I've met a lot of these people through that park. And I think, skateboarding, BMXing, all those sports, they do get a bad rap sometimes. But also, I think a really beautiful aspect about it is that I have friends of all ages at Sebastopol, and that's just from showing up and us all coming together and doing what we love. And I've actually very recently become friends with people like Tim and Eric, and it's just from skateboarding and us hanging out together and having a good time. And so once again, bottom line, gratitude. Thank you so much. This is a very exciting development, and I think it's something that the community is only going to thoroughly benefit from, because it really does bring people from all different ages and all different walks of life together to enjoy something outside. And what more could you ask for at a community park? So thank you so much. I think partnering with Grindline is incredible. They make extremely awesome parks, and it's going to excite a lot of people. And Petaluma is already such an awesome place, and it's only going to add another positive aspect to this great city. So without further ado, thank you so much for including us in this. Thank you for taking this into consideration. And for us that are here and everyone else who could not show up, we are all extremely excited for this next step and hope that it can come through into fruition. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Finally, Bobby Britton.
Hello, thank you for having us all today. And I just wanted to back up what he was saying, that Grindline has done some amazing work for the skateboarding community, and we're super honored that you guys have chosen to work with them for the city. The other thing I just wanted to add was I only moved here about a year ago. I grew up down in the Bay Area skateboarding, starting at a very young age, and there's no skate parks when I was skateboarding at a young age. So unfortunately, that led to a lot of conflict with police officers at a young age. You're at public areas, destruction of public property, creating noise conflicts. I couldn't help but notice when I first walked in here today that there was evidence of people skateboarding in the front of City Hall. And kids are going to find a place to go and skateboard and do their thing. Unless we provide it for them, they're going to continue to do things that other members of the community might not like so much. So very grateful for you guys backing this project and adding to the city and making something beautiful for the kids. So thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of our speakers that came out tonight. It's really great to see such a strong community here. Now commission discussion. Our task at hand here is to provide input about the site selection between the 4 sites. Does anyone want to start with feedback? Marianne?
It sounds to me like the site of choice for the community is Lucchese, and the only concern that I have with that is the trees, that we minimize removal of any healthy trees or protect the trees as needed to facilitate the design of the skate park.
Thank you, Marianne. Kate?
Thank you. I just want to, first of all, thank everyone who came out today from the public. It was so inspiring to see this community show up. And I mean, you guys have me excited about this. My son just skateboarded for the first time yesterday. He's only 2.5, so it's not like real skating, but I'm just really excited. And it's so, I'm really impressed by staff and how the momentum of this project is really exciting. And I just want to keep that going. It sounds like we have the community support behind this project, and I think the city needs to step up and really, provide funding at the city level for this so that we can keep the momentum going and really engage the public in this really important project. It's such a positive, multi-generational sport. We have world-class skaters here in Petaluma. Like, we need a world-class facility, and I'm just so glad that Grindline was the design firm of choice. I think it's amazing. So I'm just hearing Lucchese. It seems like that is really the ideal location. I think Kenilworth had some really great, components with the whole redesign or revitalization project. It seems like it would have worked to kind of fold it in, but I think there are just some barriers there, and the footprint, like if we are doing this in a phased design process where we can really make this a big impactful project, I think Lucchese makes more sense to have it be like a feature and an attraction. And I'm just really, really pumped on this project. So that's really all I have to say is I'm excited, and I hope that City Council moves forward with Lucchese as the location. That would be my feedback on the site analysis.
Thank you. And Stacy?
This was one of the reasons why I wanted on the commission, this park in general. I grew up with a lot of skateboarders, and you need a place to go. Teens need a place to go. It's super important. And before I go with my recommendation, I want to address the bad rap. If anybody ever says that, what I think is that they need to really look at the art of skateboarding and look at the tenacity, the perseverance, the commitment, the spatial awareness, the strength to pull off some of these tricks. And so I just need to address that, because every time I hear it, it's very aggravating to me. You can tell I'm already upset about it, because it is such a commitment to do the sport. And so again, if we give space for these activities, that develops a certain type of character of what we want out of all of our citizens. And so I think really delivering on this project, I think is going to be great. I think that Lucchese Park is definitely my choice. I think it can offer the largest square footage. And that is something that when I've gone to other skate parks, trying to do something the size of what we already have, I just don't think it's going to deliver in that big way. I think the lighting that's already there for the soccer fields can be tapped. So there's some different infrastructure things there. And in terms of the phasing, I think that, yes, I agree. We need to recommend that Measure M funding is using all of the capital money that we can to push this forward. And do it and try to get it on a timeline from that piece. So yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Karen?
First of all, I have to say that being on the city council, I never hear positive. I never hear a thank you. So it's really nice to hear so many, because I'm like, oh no, they're going to have pitchforks. But new to this and new to this process, when the existing skate park was built, my kids were teenagers. They are now homeowners, and they're in trouble with their HOA for having skate ramps in front of their house. But I'm really excited because now I have almost 7 grandchildren who will be using that park in Petaluma. So I'm really excited. Looking ahead, Lucchese Park has the biggest space, 58,000 square feet is what my notes say. And then the trees can perhaps be shade, because while you're waiting your turn or whatever, or skating, or your mother's sitting there watching you, waiting so you take you to the hospital. I was there. Anyway, the shade is great, and natural trees is great, and I'm sure we can work the paths or whatever you call it, the ramps around the trees. But I just see it as multi-ages. You've got your young, I'm a preschool teacher, so my preschoolers love to think they're skateboarders. And then you've got your older children, and then you've got your teenagers, and then you have your adults. And then you also have that BMX. So my only kind of concern is, how do you skate with the BMX? Because that's bicycles. And I watched a BMX movie filmed at our existing skate park to kind of understand. And I'm like, is there times? How do you work that out? I mean, you guys are awesome.
Same as you do when you're driving, trying to avoid other It's literally that simple. You just neutral. You watch for each other.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the older guys, we look out for the younger ones.
Okay.
Teach them to, hey, that guy's over there watching, so I don't really have any issues.
That's great. I applaud you. You could run the world and we could have peace and harmony. Thank you.
We just want to skate.
I think that's great.
Thank you. Hannah?
Yeah, after looking at everything, Lucchese definitely seems like the best fit with shade and places to hang out and eat and, skate, do everything. And with the city pushing for this multi-generational thing they're doing, seems like that can all be incorporated there. And maybe there's a grant out there for that with the senior center there and the Little League and Boys and Girls Club. Yeah, very exciting. Another reason why I joined the commission was to start the process of the skate park, which I think talks had started before the pandemic and then kind of went out, and then there was repaved tennis courts instead. So hopefully that we stick to it and get this done. And yeah, I think we really need to make sure the city funds this as much as it can and not asking for private donations because the city owes this to our community. So thank you.
Thank you. So I wholeheartedly agree with Lucchese. I think that that's the right space. I appreciate that the community feels like that's the right space as well, and that we all feel like we can support what the community wants. So I think that that's really great. I just want to go back to making sure, as Marianne said, that the trees are protected in the best way we can, that the gophers don't mess things up for us. And as much as we can get this phasing thing down so that we're not left hanging going, wait, where's phase 3? Why isn't phase 3 here? I just really, really hope we can get to a place that we don't not finish the project. That's really important to me, that if we're going to move forward, let's move forward and really do this in a way that we can. I again want to thank the skating community. I was at the first community workshop. The positivity, the collaborating, the working together. It wasn't ever an us versus them, the city versus the skating community. It was like, how do we come together to work on this? And it's been a beautiful, beautiful process. So thank you to staff and thank you to the skating community for being a part of that and for showing up and continuing to show up to city council too, right? Awesome. Any other comments from the commission? Yeah?
For Cindy, probably. Have the Gophers affected the tennis courts at all?
Good question.
No, not that I've seen.
Cool.
That was a good comparison. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you. Cool. Okay, we're going to move on to review, discuss, and recommend establishing an ad hoc subcommittee to assist staff in review and development of the draft update of the integrated pest management plan. Drew. Thank you all so much.
Chair.
Thank
you all. Bjorn.
There goes our audience.
Be dismissed as well. Thank you, Bjorn. So just to restate the item that we have in front of us, ultimately staff is recommending that the commission discuss and establish an ad hoc subcommittee to assist in the development of the draft update to the Integrated Pest Management Plan, the IPMP. So if most of you remember from the February 15th meeting last month, 4 weeks ago, the majority of commissioners expressed an interest to form the ad hoc subcommittee to assist with further development of language of the draft and scope related to the IPM. While a vote was taken to establish a committee, staff has been advised to agendize the item for discussion tonight with proper noticing and essentially take two actions. One, to review the scope that's being provided, to make any adjustments that the commission deems necessary. That includes additions, modifications, taking things away, and ultimately take an action to nominate 2 to 3 members and action on creating that subcommittee. So I'm going to go over real quick. This is available in the staff report, but those four bullets that represented the scope that the majority of the commission provided staff feedback on was: 1, provide a framework for the role and responsibilities of the IPM coordinator; 2, provide recommendations for the role and responsibilities of the IPM task force; 3, draft language for the least toxic method exemption protocol; and 4, provide a recommendation for pesticide use related to certifications. There were some conversations on which to use. So again, I want to reiterate that the commission can modify, can change any one of those scopes. We just wanted to provide back to you all what the majority of the commission's feedback was, and open up the discussion to hopefully establish that ad hoc tonight so that we can meet and get going. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any clarifying questions around our task here? Okay. Any public comment? Okay. Discussion. So, my understanding task at hand is that the scope of work that we want do we want an ad hoc? Is that the scope of work, and who will be on the ad hoc if we have it? Those are the 3 tasks at hand. So first question is, do we want an ad hoc? But Drew said we had to motion it here tonight to make it official.
But we motioned it last time.
Right, but there was a legal thing there.
Yeah, so tonight has been agendized for discussion, and there's a recommendation action for tonight, and that's to tonight establish the ad hoc with the scope that's in front of us. And if you want to change that scope, this is the opportunity to do that in a public meeting that's been agendized, so that it's very clear of when we do break and meet, we'll have a good understanding of what those expectations when you come back to the commission to report are on. And so yes, we did.
Can I ask a question? Why does it have to be so limited in terms of, like, for example, there's 4 things listed, maybe we come up with 2 more. Why is it limited? It's a 7-page document. Why is it so constrained, out of curiosity?
Why are we limited to the 4?
No, I understand that we're not limited to the 4, but I guess what I don't understand is why can't the ad hoc look at all of it and then figure out, from the community members what their things were, maybe the items that what we see. I don't understand why we have constraints. Like, why would legal put constraints on us?
I think it's the Brown Act provides legal advice that if we're establishing an ad hoc committee, which is not under a public meeting, that there should be an expectation on the role and scope of what that ad hoc is doing. You're essentially assigning tasks to them, and so it's a transparency issue. So if you want to look at, there's not a page number that you have to come back with. If that 7-page document, you want to turn it into 20 within this scope, go for it. It's not that, it's just that whatever it is, it's agreed to tonight, that's your scope. And I think the point is to not have ad hoc committees that run without a point for which their mission is complete. so that you don't have standing committees, which then run into the issue of having to go through public noticing, et cetera. So it's all around that transparency law, so that when you do come back, there's a good expectation of what it is you're going to be coming back with. But other than that, make that the scope that you all feel you want to take on.
Okay, so is that why it says, providing but not limited to? So meaning,
Sure.
I mean, just because this is the first ad hoc that has formed on this commission, I've seen them formed in other things, so I'm just trying to understand like the process, right? So meaning there's these 4 things that were identified. If we identify 2 more here, but if one came up completely separate, again, surrounding that 7-page document, that's still okay? Or it's not okay? I'm not trying to make
Yeah,
it too difficult,
I think
I'm
I
really
would
trying
get
to
what you're
understand.
going for. I think what I would recommend then is regular report outs to this commission. And if that scope changes, then we discuss it at the next commission. Say, hey, this led us down this avenue. I think we should talk about it as a commission, just so we're going to adjust the role. I think that's probably the best advice I could give. Yes, council member.
So there's been a lot of public, we've gotten letters as council members about the turf. And a lot of people came to council, public comment, talking about the turf, the artificial turf. The ad hoc is only limited to the IPM, and they can't bring in a turf conversation. Is that why we have to limit the
Drew, do you
ad hoc
mind-
committee?
Drew, do you mind if I step in a little bit? Is that
Sure.
okay? Just because the tree committee has a lot of ad hoc committees, and this has come up, and they've questioned it in the same way. So for ad hoc committees, you have to have a clear definition of what the role of that is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the way Drew's presenting it is that there's these 4 areas, but as a commission, you guys can choose to expand that or not, but you as a commission have to vote on what the ad hoc is going to be doing, and that's what's being asked. Now, to answer your question about the turf is not in the IPM, so it's separate, and that's why you wouldn't bring it into this document itself.
Well, that's what I was trying to explain, is that you're just talking about the IPM. You can't expand into the turf.
Correct.
So that's why there's a framework.
Right, because this is being brought forward to review the IPM and the IPM that's presented, right? So that's what the ad hoc is, that's what their goal is. Thank you, Drew.
Thank you. I was hoping to see maybe, I don't quite know how this would qualify as a deliverable, but the ad hoc act as a bridge with our community stakeholders and community members who have expressed interest in being involved in this process, and how we could distill that, information and, the public wants and what their, feedback was. How do we make that into a deliverable or an actionable item for the ad hoc committee? Is that possible to add that? Is that just an expectation that the ad hoc committee will have, that collaboration with those stakeholders automatically?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Short answer is, that it really is a tool that the ad hoc has available to them. So not having to go through a monthly noticing process is really important, so that when you need to take meetings with working groups, and it's not just working groups, it's staff and operations stakeholders, it's other operators. That's an important part, I think, of this committee is, taking a pause, taking a step back, and the 6 or 7 months of gathering that information from the consultants on meeting with these working groups, meeting with staff, all that information is available, but also it's kind of our jobs as staff to help set up those meetings or provide you information as the ad hoc committee moves along the process. Does that answer the question?
Sort of. I guess, how do we make sure that the community is still involved in the process?
Can I, so I
Yeah,
think,
go ahead.
I think that the ad hoc has that at their discretion to meet with community members and
That's-
whatnot,
that's what I'm
right? So it's not
wondering, kind of
necessarily a
along-
deliverable as much
Okay.
as, and
as along the lines of, you know, is it limited to just this, these deliverables, or, you know, can we utilize the community as?
Yeah, I want to be careful. Not, you know, the ad hoc committee will be members of this committee
Mhm.
and commission and staff. So we're not looking for membership outside of that. And that when we present out, you know, that's really the role of involving everyone. And, you know, it was a you know, a very lively debate on Monday night's council. I think there's a lot of people very interested in this. So it's important for us to give regular updates at this commission on progress and kind of the routes that we're taking. And yeah, there's not a timeline on that. So part of that is just this next step tonight.
Okay, thank you.
so, go ahead, Hannah.
Yeah, just in the IPM, I don't know if we're allowed to add things to the list right now, but I'm wondering if like the pest presence just seems like very like, woo, there's like, can we like narrow down what we're gonna do for gopher abatement, what the process is gonna, I know we're still like finding a contractor and kind of dialing that down. But like, so we have some steps that the city will take when there's an outbreak like there is at most of the parks, except for the tennis courts and the skate park. Just so there's, you know, there's steps that we're ensuring we're doing as a city, especially with getting this gopher contract finalized.
So to change the scope to include gopher abatement or to include, the gopher abatement would fall under the IPM as it is now. Yeah, they would identified as a pest. I think some feedback we got on Monday night, staff received on Monday night, was to provide more of a matrix or inventory of pests that are currently being kind of managed. So that was some feedback we've gotten since we met last. So that may kind of work itself into that in a kind of an inventory, if you will, of pests being managed. We want to be careful to know that whatever we do, there's always unintended, you know, pests that come into our environments. So there's going to be an aspect of that. But as far as this is concerned, we did receive that feedback, more kind of robust identification of what we're going after or currently going after.
Yeah, because it's just kind of, it's almost like reading like when the doctor gives you your medical report, you know, it's like that kind of stuff. You're like, what are they even talking about?
Yeah, so I mean, so you're saying that can be added as one of these numbers that the addressing specifically gophers. I mean, that if there are pests that maybe you would use, say, organic pesticides on, right? This isn't that caliber. It's a whole separate thing that all of us are dealing with. So it can be its own separate thing to make sure that there's wording, you know, and maybe ideas put down in terms of how those things could be managed.
Could I interject?
Sure.
I think the IPM policy or program policy is really what we're talking about. It's a policy. It's an overarching document that lays out sort of the groundwork and the parameters for everything that we're doing in terms of dealing with pests, but it's not going to be the same as what an IPM coordinator would do, which would be to tell you specifically, these are the actions that you're going to take using these products.
Right.
You know, and lay out a plan. That's more of an IPM plan for specific sites rather than, rather than the policy, which is sort of more how are we going to approach all of these different situations and what are going to be our overarching guiding principles in dealing with all of these situations. The IPM coordinator is going to give the specific plans for each specific pest at each specific location. So I don't know that we're going to get into that much detail in the policy of how we're going to specifically treat each type of pest. In other words,
I don't, you know what I realize after you're talking is I think that when I read this document, it seems like pest as in bugs versus a small mammal. I think that's.
It's funguses, it's bacterias, it's rodents, rats.
Right, yeah.
gophers,
So I think
every
that
kind
was,
bug.
I think that's maybe the differentiation of, so maybe the feedback of understanding what pest encompassed. Because when I read it, I'm thinking more of things that you would put compounds on, like, pesticides, right? Versus managing animals, rodents, whatever you want to classify in that thing.
Weeds are pests also.
Right, but that's what I mean. So in my head, right, so when I read that document, when they say pests, I guess pest isn't, at least me, I'm not thinking of it necessarily as the living animals with a heartbeat. I'm thinking of it as a weed, a fungus, that type of thing.
You're right. So when you don't live in the world of maintenance, like my world, I get it. If I were to
Yeah.
read that, you'd be like a pest, right?
Mhm.
Some kind of bug, typically, I think is what most people would think about. So just more clear definition of the term pest. Stacy, is that what you're asking? Like
Pardon?
you want to define the
Yeah,
word
well,
pest a little
yeah,
bit more.
define pest, and I think that was the feedback, it sounds like, from city council of identifying, and again, you guys probably know off the top of your head what the things you deal with are the most, right?
In my world, when I say it, I'm like, of course, it's all these things. It's a weed, it's a bug, something with four legs that we don't want in our homes.
Right.
Okay, so, go ahead, Karen.
I was just going to mention, the reason we were discussing it on Monday is because this is part of our city council's 10 top priorities and goals for the year. So we're really, really looking to accomplish something this year because it's on our goals. We're committed. So that's why we really had a long conversation about it, and how we do have partnerships, especially with the pests, like we have the Sonoma Marin mosquito and vector. They call them vectors, not mice. Vector control. There are partnerships with Petaluma, and we can use that as well, to when we hire this person. We already have a built-in partnership with the Sonoma Marin mosquito and vector control for some of those four-legged living things, as well as the weed abatement or the shrubberies or the plants, the blackberries or whatever we have growing. So,
Okay. I would agree that this is I think it's also a priority of the commission as well. I'm going to bring us back to our task at hand here, which are these 4 items our scope? Clearly there's already a feeling of wanting an ad hoc, and who will be on the ad hoc. So coming back to that task at hand of the 4 items,
Yeah, I was just gonna ask more of kind of like a nuts and bolts question about timing of ad hoc commitment and like what that looks like if we do move forward, because I just don't see anything on the staff report about that, or if that is left completely up to the ad hoc committee itself.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. The one reference on the ad hoc is that typically the commitment is that you would be meeting with staff or hosting meetings during the traditional workday hours, Monday through Friday. So that's kind of the only expectations. Other than that, the first order of business is to kind of meet together and talk about schedules and timing and what you can commit to. And yes, while the council member, there's a hyper focus on all these items among the top 10. There are some like the historic trestle, and there's others that are just ginormous and that are going to tract on different paces. But I think the point is made that, we, as much as staff can, support this ad hoc, set up meetings, we're committed to that. But I think other than, there's no expectation other than, to meet during the traditional workday hours.
Great, thank you so much.
Hannah?
Does the ad hoc have to set up meetings through staff? Or are we allowed to do that on our own? Or does everything have to go through staff?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We appreciate kind of working with staff to set those kind of initial parameters, but no, there's not a requirement that staff be attending at all those meetings. We want to support the effort, we want to provide as much information as we can, help the process out, but the real hope here is to support, staff's efforts in return. So, good question.
So going back to scope, hearing the feedback from staff and Marianne and whatnot, does everyone feel comfortable with these four pieces for our scope of the ad hoc? I'm getting some head nods here. Okay. I'm trying to lump this all into one motion here. Okay. And then the last question is who would like, maybe we can just do like a raise of hands of who would like to participate. We could take 2 to 3 people for the ad hoc. Thank you, Marianne. I was hoping. Oh, perfect. Okay. So then we need a motion to have an ad hoc committee based on the scope of these 4 items with Marianne, Hannah, and Kate as our representatives. Can someone motion that?
Sure. I motion to form an ad hoc. Do you want me to list out each of these? Do you want them said?
With
I think you could reference the staff report or,
Okay.
Item 1 through 4,
So
whatever
I
you
motion
prefer.
to create an ad hoc with, to cover the 4 items listed in the staff report from the March 15th meeting, with Commissioners Rizzo, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting your last name. Greenspan, thank you, and Berticelli. Yes.
Do we have a second?
I second that motion.
Great. All in favor? Oh, we don't have the little lights, huh? Oh, just hand raise. You guys haven't had the lights up yet up there. Awesome. Okay. Thank you all. And I look forward to hearing back from the ad hoc. I hope that you meet within the month so that we could hear back next month. Thank you for taking on this really
We
important
were ready
task.
to meet early the week after
I know you
we
were.
approved it the
Yep.
first time. So
Marianne was
Well,
ready.
now it's all legal and done properly.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
okay. So we're going to go on to commissioner comment. I'm going to go just kind of down the line. We'll start with Hannah, commissioner comment.
hi, yeah, parks are wet. My daughter finally had her first baseball game tonight, so that was exciting that the field dried out enough for that. Yeah, parks look good, green, gophery, long grass. Lots of gophers in my yard too. Art commission's been good. Just kind of talking about the small art piece commission. Actually had a recommendation for doing some like skatable cement artwork down like C Street, where that whole area was like a huge skate spot back in the day, when all the auto dealerships moved away and it was just an empty playground. So yeah, kind of incorporating what we've been talking about and into art, which could have been cool if Kenilworth was the spot to incorporate that art money and the park money and the skate money and kind of do like a full thing. But Luke Casey's definitely better with not having to have a fence. And yeah, other than that, that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Kate.
Youth Commission did not meet. We did not have a quorum yesterday, so we did not meet, unfortunately. So no updates there. Haven't really gotten out to many of parks in the rain, but last time I was at the parks, they were looking pretty good, pretty underwater, a lot of them. But I also just wanted to comment the discussion around skate park and the IPMP has just really highlighted for me the need for a parks master plan, and I'm just going to continue saying it just because I think that it would be so helpful in guiding these conversations. So just there's my little plug for that.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Stacy.
Stacy, do you mind just turning on the mic? Thank you so much.
Okay, I'll say that with the mic. I'll plug a Parks Master Plan as well. That was the other reason I wanted to get onto the commission as well. I was really feeling like this town needed that. Okay, all of my parks look good. They're, they're just tree branches everywhere and stuff. And although I didn't see any trees down, 2 trees fell at Cherry Valley in 1 week. It was pretty impressive. They were big too. Okay, at Lucchese Park, which is not one of my parks, but it's the park next to my house, and my husband took the kids there yesterday. There's 2 big kid swings missing. So they're taken off, so you guys must know about them. And so that the little baby ones are there, but the ones that you would normally swing on, like kids, they're not there. And all of the monkey bar things are gone. So in that play structure, they're like little handles and you'd swing, all of those are gone. You guys look puzzled by that.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't be surprised. We don't know where these things end up, but yeah, we were not aware, so thank you.
Okay. Then, did you have the meeting with the pool contractor?
Yes, we've been communicating regularly with the pool contractor, had met with them and staff.
In regarding covering the pool, and do they have the equipment to cover the pool, and what's going on there specifically?
Yeah, we have the equipment to cover the pool. There has been, challenges with staffing, with wind advisories, et cetera. So we are committed to being very clear with them, our expectations, which is that the pool is covered and that the schedule dictates the ability to cover the pool. So that's been our position, and we're working towards that. So
Okay.
thank you.
I asked why the kids don't cover it, like the swim teams. Like, I was like, why don't they cover it? And the feedback that I got from that is that the rollers don't work well. There's not, there's kind of like almost like handles that they need to pull with. Those aren't there. And so they said they're more than happy to have the swim teams do it as part of closing, but there needs the proper equipment for them to be able to do it needs to be there. So that was just feedback, because I felt like that was low hanging fruit. Like, they're already in the damn pool rather than have a lifeguard get in, right? Because if it's a staffing issue, the kids can do it, but it sounds like, from what I understand, there needs to be some improvement in that equipment as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I think there's from my understanding, and Rachel is really, our resident aquatics expert, kind of grown up through aquatics programming, but there is a culture of covering and uncovering the pool through the teams that are typically there. The staffing challenges are in the mornings typically to be the ones to uncover the pool. So that was one strategy we discussed is, those swim teams, those volunteers, committing them, sharing insurances, things like that. But we have to also just kind of get to the bottom of the equipment and what they can and can't do. Obviously, safety is the most important, but after that, during these cool and cold weather, we need to make sure the pool is covered.
Okay, all right, thanks. And I think that was it.
Okay, Marianne?
I'll give you a little bit of an update on the museum board. There's a lot of activity going on. There's going to be all kinds of tours starting up, school tours. They're going to be the Petalumas of yesteryear are going to be in the Butter and Eggs Parade. They're going to be handing out literature there. They're going to be starting up their weekly tours again. And also want to mention that Solange won an award from the Sonoma Historical Society, I believe, Sonoma County. So I think that's fantastic, and I was hoping that we could maybe put a little blurb about her on the website or something like that. We're looking at a brand refresh with a new logo and kind of a new look for the museum. So there's somebody that's working kind of full-time on that, who's creating a whole sort of new look for the museum, all the museum's communications, getting on social media and all that. They're talking about, well, the biggest thing probably is that they decided to hire an executive director, which I think is really great to get some leadership in the museum and start tackling some of the bigger issues. Fundraising, of course, is always a big issue, and they're looking at having open houses to bring people in to tell them about what the board does, get more people interested possibly in joining the museum board. So, because some people are maybe getting a little bit burned out, and really kind of there's just a lot of ideas bubbling up and a lot of activity starting to happen, wanting to get information and engage the public officials more, the city council more, to bring them into the museum and let them know what's going on, what the needs of the museum are, and how they can form closer alliances within the city to support the museum. So there's a lot going on at the museum. And I think the parks I'm really happy to see the parks greening up again. I'm happy to see all this water, even though I know it's causing a lot of other problems. But I think I just have to always, give a shout out to the staff, because I know, that you're doing a lot with a little. And I think that's, everyone's to be applauded, the staff, in the job that they're doing. So. Thank you.
Thanks, Marianne. Karen? Oh, did you, Stacy? Sorry, Karen, 1 second.
I just wanted to note PBAC didn't meet this month, so I don't have an update. That's why I don't have an update.
Thank you.
It was canceled.
Well, good news. The city council approved unanimously the Davidon Scott Ranch development. It will have a park portion, which is 47 acres of open space. That will link up with Helen Putnam Park. And so there's that's really great news for Petaluma, because it's going to have a learning center, it's going to have a lot of other features, and it'll have a walking trail, and it's really exciting. And that's also been in the almost 20 years. I think it was 19 years it's been in the pipeline to be developed, and it went from a huge housing development, to only 23 houses and 47 acres of open space park for our community. So I'm really excited about that. I talked about the goals and priorities. There's a lot of things happening, and they're all so positive for Petaluma. I'm really excited. And do you know that there is an app for Petaluma? I mean, I had to learn about it even after being elected. We have an app. And so if you see something that is wrong, like at the park, like the swings, I didn't even know the swings were, I didn't know how long they'd been missing or anything. That's like the BMX. I didn't know how long that had been a problem. But if you do have a problem, you do go to, it's called Engage Petaluma. It's an app, you download it, and you take a picture and you send it to this app, and then the staff member, who, if it's the parks, I guess, usually they're about public works items, but they get right on it, and they get updated right away, a photograph and a map, and it's you don't even have to say your name, and they'll make a comment. It's really, I learned about it because I'm like, people are telling me about things all the time, and I was like, having to write an email. Well, this is instant. It goes to a staff member, and then it gets given to the right staff member to correct immediately. So, the water on the parks, I hear about muddy walkways, but it will dry up. The sun will come out, and we'll have springtime soon. So, it's great for potholes too.
After the rain, because there's a stretch of street.
Yeah.
One day it'll be torn up, right? But they get right out there, like, because when a pothole
Yep.
happens, it's big, and so, yeah.
And they get deeper. So they want to know about it immediately. Signs, street signs, and what have you too. So it's really great. So, but even in the parks, I haven't seen too many park suggestions or repairs needed, but usually they're potholes. But it's really exciting because before I was going to like the internet and seeing all the complaints from the neighborhood groups, and then I was like, oh, you just go to this app and it gets fixed right away. So the parks needs that. Do you get those requests, Cindy?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
When they come into them.
Okay.
Just for the just for the record, Cindy, I didn't have your microphone on, but yes, to confirm, those go track to staff as well. So sometimes, it's an added step to go through Engage just to come and ping us. But for those quick ones, like you're walking and you just need to snap a photo, what a great tool, But if there's a larger safety issue with context, helps too. But it does integrate into the workflow system. It just takes one layer of staff to get there. And then it's prioritized with the queue and the work order system as it is. So it's not like a fairy can come over and sprinkle some dust on that pothole. But yes, we do get it, and it's great to have tools like that.
It's great for parks. So if there is something like swings missing right away that staff needs to know about, because I didn't know when they were last seen, since I didn't have a benchmark for the parks. Sorry.
Oh, wait, is that your park? He was just there yesterday. That's your park. He was just there yesterday. So.
No, it's great because I usually go to Leghorn, but the kids were looking for swings, and Bond Park didn't have swings, and I would happen to be at Bond. Oh, one question about Bond Park: why is the turtle over the concrete? I wouldn't let the grandkids climb on it because I didn't want them to fall off.
So the turtle in the community engagement process, it was really important to that community that the turtle stayed within the park. Right. But in order to put the playground in the way that we did, it did not allow for the turtle to be in the playground anymore because it's not in the safe fall zone. So in order to address what the community wanted was to keep the turtle in the park and also install the playground that the community wanted, we had to pull the turtle out of the actual playground.
But children still climb on it, and there's nothing but concrete underneath of it.
So it's not in the playground. So if people are climbing over it, then it's like they're climbing over a picnic table or something else, right? That's why we could not put it in the playground, though, because then we could not put in the play structure. That was from the feedback. That's what the community wanted.
Okay, because there's no signage that says, please don't. I wouldn't let them. Okay. But there's no signage or anything, and so parents were letting them climb on it. It doesn't matter. When you're a grandmother and your 3-year-old grandson hits his head, it doesn't matter.
Well, I think that's good feedback for staff to hear that maybe it should be looked at. So, thank you. Okay, so I would also like to praise the staff, Public Works as well as park maintenance and whatnot with all these storms, trees coming down, flooding, getting in front of it. I mean, knowing the storm is coming and seeing Public Works out there getting in front of it on the streets. I think we dodged some severe bullets there because of the staff that we have in Petaluma. So I think that's really amazing. I would love to hear from staff in your staff report. I saw a survey on social media a while ago about 4th of July. So if anything landed there around 4th of July, and maybe it's too early for an update about, where we are with summer camps and summer activities and whatnot, if we need to do a push somehow on that or not. And that's all I have. So we will move right to staff for comment.
Great, thank you. I'll add that to my notes, Cindy, but if you want to get going, Cindy
Sure.
Chong.
Well, hello, everybody. Excuse me if I'm a little bit tired. I've been sitting in council chamber for hours at this point. But just your updates for the month. Park staff has been really busy with the storms. We've been really lucky. Actually, we have not had a whole lot of damage in our parks. We're really grateful. We'll see as it dries out. Next on our kind of schedule is to start our turf maintenance program, right? It would have normally happened in March, but because it's been so wet, we anticipate that will start in April. I'm in process for finalizing the gopher abatement contract for 4 parks to start. So we'll start with McNair, Prince, Wiseman, and City Hall. So those will be our 4 that we initially start to see how that abatement program will work and if we can get some good headway on that. So look to see some changes and hopefully not so many gophers in your park, you know, Commissioner Simmons. No, I can't do anything at your house, but hopefully the parks will get better. So that's in progress. Your parks team outside of that are, you know, have been ramping up their refurbishment. So you'll see in Leghorns Park, one of the major things they've been working on is refurbishing the picnic tables that kind of need a little bit of love. Henry Park sign got refurbished. That was one of our signs that we did this past time. Grant Park, they had removed all the equipment, so that install was happening. We're getting the playground infill, so that should happen, and you'll get to, hopefully, Rachel and her team will do a grand opening for that revamp of that park. It's pretty phenomenal, so really excited about that. Your tree committee, we met just prior to you for the first time on the council dais. It was great. We had a lot of spirited discussion. Arbor Day events, the official are the 29th, which is going to happen. We nailed that to time. It's 10 to 12 in McNair Park. We'll be planting trees, probably 2 to 3 trees. That was decided. And then on Sunday, we'll have a nature walk with Relief Petaluma going through the nature corridor that they've helped plant through the east side of town. So we're going to have a weekend of trees. That's really exciting. So if any of you guys can make it, we will send information out. We welcome everybody to come. Outside of that, your tree committee also is going to form a new ad hoc committee on communications and possibly tree ordinance policy process. So we'll agendize that. That was a really spirited discussion today, but they are moving, a lot of stuff happening. Your relief team, we finished by the skin of all of our teeth. The 6 parks got planted with all the rains. It was really hard, but Southgate and Meadowview did get done. So those are planted out. If those are your parks, take a look, give us some feedback, but we're really excited to finish this planting season, take a deep breath, and then make steps for the next season. We'll probably be planning in the fall. Arroyo and Miwok are on that schedule, so look out for that. But lots of trees. It looks really cool in Lucchese. If you can just dream a little bit how different that park will look, not even with the skate park discussion, but the mixture of the trees around the pond. And it's really the legacy that we're living behind. So really excited about that work. That is your parks update. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Just piling on from the theme of just wet weather over the last 4 weeks since last we met, you know, really kind of wreaking havoc on all of our organized sports leagues, especially this spring. You know, I think in well, say 6 weeks, or at least in May, this will be a great problem to have. But I think there's a lot of just consternation about, like Commissioner Hannah said, just we haven't seen these kind of types of delays for several seasons. So there's a lot of angst to get out there and play. And it again kind of reinforces the need, have these conversations on all weather fields and what our community would be facing without them. And also a broader discussion too on, the role that they play. But with that said, we do expect, that council will take up our status of reducing our water regulations, which is something we haven't been able to discuss for the last couple of years. So the fact that we can water parks and the council will be taking that up at the end of the month means everything, and really allows us the tools that we need to keep and sustain those improvements on our natural grass fields. So that's all great. And like Cindy said, that the Grant Park Playground, we were really excited because we kind of were able to get in there a little early before the deluge. The playground is installed, but we weren't able to get back in there and finish the job. So we are excited to add that last wood fiber. The construction fence comes down, and then the opening ceremonies, ribbon cutting might be delayed a little bit, but when it happens, really excited to open that playground. Anna's Meadows also is going forward. The commission unanimously supported the design and gave strong feedback to include a shade structure as part of that initial. So that's kind of delayed it a little bit as we try to creatively think on how we can fund that. But we have a good route forward, so we'll be bringing that to council. I don't have a date for you now, but we're excited after we finish up Grant to quickly bring an item up to council to get an award for construction for that project and a shade structure and the adjacent to it. The summer programming registrations are almost all full. So if you know anyone who's still looking for summer camps, there's spots here or there, but huge deluge of folks signing up for camps across the board. So if you're looking for places to go or need folks, go now. Don't wait or tomorrow. We're also hiring at several kind of our seasonal staff, building attendants, Tiny Tot teachers, and our recreation leaders. We've been really successful to have a high retention rates of bringing camp counselors back for rec leaders, but this is across the board. Other agencies we're talking to, really hard to find and then maintain and retain, good, qualified, enthusiastic young rec leaders that we can bring into our camps. So those are a position we're particularly looking at. The Senior Center just wrapped up a 6 weeks of Aging Gracefully lecture series, which was really well done, and was capped off today by a St. Patrick's Day festivities there. I had secondhand experience from staff that it was a big hit. So there'll probably be some social media posts about that later. But the Senior Center is just buzzing. The events that really make that place come alive, it's pretty exciting. So I was jealous that I missed out on that today, but glad staff took part in the research and reconnaissance. The chess tables that are installed on Water Street, also, we are looking a little bit farther out for a kind of a grand opening celebration, but that is April 29th. We're committed to from 11 to 2. So put that down now. It seems like it's farther out, but I'm sure it'll come by in a blink. But yeah, trying to get folks out there, get some chess players there to demonstrate and activate that space. And excited to see that. And that we are also worth noting, we're getting close to executing some agreements with partners and local grazers to have a local pilot program to graze some of our parkland. So this is something that I think we've talked about, kicked around, and I've always wanted to do, but we're at a point where we have a smaller kind of pilot program that we're going to try. And I think we had 6 parks. Yeah, so we'll have 6 parks to report to probably next month. But I just want to let you know now we're excited to be kind of putting this out there. You'll be involved in it. Obviously, it's half is the grazing, but more importantly, it's just the education and outreach around what we're doing, what we're trying to achieve, and create some kind of benchmarking that we can track over time to see kind of the costs, the benefits, and really what kind of changes can we expect in our landscape. So more to report out on that now, but it's something that we're really hoping that Parks and Rec take the lead on, and if it's supported and if we can grow it to other departments, divisions, cities, we really want to scale up. But right now we're going to be taking the lead on a few parks, and been an exciting project to meet with some grazers and really a lot of local expertise on folks that are doing this. And so I'm sure with the rains they'll have a lot to eat. Yes.
Can I just ask what parks are the pilot?
Sure. I've got to be careful because, we have a few on the fence, so to speak. But how about I'll give you a few. We've got Mannion Knolls. Do you have a microphone? Yeah. I'm going to put Delana on the spot.
Okay.
Yes, we have Mannion Knolls Country Club, Steamer's Landing, or McNear Peninsula, depending on how that's referred to. We also have, now I'm on the spot, I can't think of
West Ridge.
West Haven.
Arroyo, Open Space, and don't hold us to this, there's plus or minus a couple parks, but those are ones that have made the short list. Go ahead.
Isn't there sheep that go down D Street that go to the McNear Peninsula? They've already been doing that for like the last 3 or 4 years.
We're just going to leave them there.
And well, they just move them down D Street and they
like
graze and then they take them out.
Yeah, so
But it's a big thing because it's like 5 o'clock in the morning.
So that's a great segue. You teed that up for me. So it's the Transhumance Festival that kind of spearheads that, and that's how we met kind of some of the local partners Sarah Kaiser, who helps lead that festival. We were working with her to kind of find the local grazers, meet with enough of us to kind of ground truth what makes sense. Not all parks are, built to graze, but yes, McNair Peninsula in particular is a good site, and we'll be working with her on that event again as well.
Because I guess they do a lot of damage to other vegetation, trees and.
See, this is
The open
this
space
is why,
people
yeah,
were
this is why
explaining.
the education and the partnerships are so important because it change is hard for everyone. If you're not expecting it and you see a lot of sheep out, you would cause some alarm. So yes, this is why the outreach is just as important of why we're doing this, and that's why it's important to have kind of that local expertise to help us engage the community and let people know what we're trying to accomplish. Yep. That's all I have.
Okay. You didn't talk about 4th of July.
Thank you.
That was a question.
Yes.
And the survey.
Yes.
Because
So
I'm sure it's going to come to council.
yes, it will. We are not at a point where we're committed to doing one event or another, but through the survey, through the findings, it's pretty clear that the community is a strong majority is looking for a fireworks display, a public display. There are some questions about if it's a high altitude display or if it's something a lower altitude display at the fairgrounds. And so while that's the strong recommendation, I think now we're meeting internally with public safety and other departments to find out what the scope of that display is, but we're also contacting pyrotechnics vendors in anticipation of a public display. So that's those meetings, those calls, that work is happening. We just don't have a definitive, we're going to do this is what it's going to look like yet.
Thank you, Drew, for addressing that. I appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
Okay, so that is our meeting for tonight. We're going to adjourn our meeting until our April meeting. Looking forward to hearing from the ad hoc then. Thank you all. Great to see you all in person.
Thank you, everybody.